Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be working on some of the contrast settings in the DJI Phantom Pro drone. I initially did some testing using D-Log, figuring that would be the best profile, but whatever DJI is doing, they're not doing it right because it's completely unusable. D-Log is completely unusable, which leaves the most probable best color profiles: D-Cinelike, none, or art. Those are the three that seem most appropriate. So what I did in this test, and you'll see in the test, I test D-Cinelike, then I test none, then I test art. And in each of these tests, I start with the aperture frozen at f6.3, doesn't change. The ISO is at 100, doesn't change. And to control exposure, basically all I do is I start the shutter speed at 1/500th of a second, and then step it down at 1/3 stop intervals down to 1/50th of a second. So 11 exposure settings for each of those color profiles. And in the video you'll see, in addition to the video showing the scene, and it's a pretty high contrast scene, so you can see some bright areas and some shadow areas. In the right hand corner I show a picture of the lumetri scope and histogram in Premiere Pro for each scene, each exposure. In addition to that, just to the left of that, you'll see the specifications of what the settings are. So you can tell what the shutter speed is, the color profile, etc., just by watching it. So when you're playing this video, you can stop it and you'll be able to know what the settings were at each of those, at each moment in time. So, as I said, the earlier test, and there'll be another video. I'll bring that up or upload that in a little bit. But the first test I did with D-Log, which I figured would be the best choice, was just useless, completely useless. And of the three here, sadly, it looks like none is the only one that's usable. Or, well, now, I wouldn't say usable. The only one that I would, at this point, think is the right choice. D-Cinelike isn't bad. Art isn't bad. Certainly not as bad as D-Log, but they're. The other thing I should mention is I used the custom setting with -2, -2, -2, -2 for sharpness, -2 for contrast, and -2 for saturation. So it may well be that the -2 in the contrast is having an effect in the video as well. So I'm going to have to do some additional testing for that. But in any case, watch the video and you can see the effect in the shadow areas, in the highlight areas, for each of those profiles, and with 11 different exposure settings in each of those profiles. And also note the lumetri scope and histogram. At the very top of the histogram, you'll see the three numbers for RGB, the bit values for the highlight area, what the peak values are in the highlight areas for R, G, and B. And at the bottom of the histogram, you'll see the minimum values for the RGB value. So watch those and watch the IRE values in the lumetri scopes as well. So like I said, I have some more videos, some more testing I want to do, but I think this should give you a good baseline as to understand what the exposure settings do, what the contrast settings are all about, and see what you think. Notice that the floor is well above the actual floor, and and as the shutter speed slows and the exposure increases, notice in the left, the lumetri scope, the blue, green, and red patches at the top, which are the sky area. Watch as it gets to the higher exposure, the shorter shutter speed, that the RG&B patches kind of stack on top of each other, and they don't reach 100 IRE. So it's topping out. There it is. You see they're flattened out? They've topped out even below at like 95 IRE. That ain't right. Alright, now this is the none setting, so it should have no contrast adjustments other than the custom setting I have with the -2. And again, you see that the bottom line starts considerably above it, but notice how that in the histogram that it starts going down in the bottom area. Also notice again the RGB patches in the lumetri scope, they will kind of stack on top of each other again. Maxing out about 95 IRE, so DJI doesn't know what the hell they're doing. They really do not understand image processing whatsoever. And this last is the art setting for color profile. And again, the H.264 for everything, ISO 100 and f6.3 for everything. And again, the RGB values stack on top one another below 100 IRE. Okay, so DJI, again, pretty clueless on image processing. The fact that in all of the color profiles, the max IRE value, even though we're blasting the to 255 on the bit values, the max IRE value is 95. That ain't right. It should go to 100. It should top out. And similarly, they pretty much have a floor or a bottom end in the shadow area of about IRE 7, and the bit values tend to bottom out about 11. So again, that ain't right. The other thing is with the none profile, starting at the darkest with a 1/500th of a second exposure, the dark end of the histogram is showing, you know, about 7 IRE thereabouts, and about 20 on the bit value. As you increase the exposure, so more light is getting in by reducing the shutter speed, or I'm sorry, increasing the shutter duration. So as you're doing that, you're increasing the exposure, more light's getting in, you would expect things to move up. But if you look in the none profile, you'll see that the histogram starts to go down, which again doesn't make any sense. I don't know what the hell DJI is doing, but again, they are utterly clueless about image processing. I mentioned at the beginning that I initially tried D-Log, but that's totally useless. I found that when I was shooting with that, even with the sky area blown out, so the exposure is overexposed, the sky area blown out, the max IRE value I saw was about 75. That can't be. It can't be. Again, DJI is clueless. So I do have some more additional tests that I want to do. I want to try with the custom setting, getting rid of the -2 on the contrast. With the D-Cinelike, D-Log, or the other color profiles, what should be happening is they apply a gamma curve to the dynamic range of the video to compress it to fit inside the bit depth of the camera. But it looks like somehow or other DJI is just putting ceiling and floor values on it and saying, okay, that's it. It's not doing a true gamma curve as far as I can see. And with, again, D-Log, the max IR value with a blown out sky of 75 is just ridiculous. And at the bottom end, in the shadow area, the minimum value I saw with D-Log was about 13 IRE, with most of the bottom of it, there was a few kind of tendrils sticking down to about 13, but really the bulk of the bottom area was more like 20 IRE. Again, makes no sense whatsoever. So, I wish I had better news as far as that's concerned, and hopefully DJI will improve their camera firmware and understand how to do it better. But there's another factor that figures into this, and I'm not even discussing it in this video much, and I'll just briefly mention it here, is that I'm shooting at 30 frames per second, and I notice in the video a blossoming of the Lumetris scope every 30 frames, or once a second, which coincides with the iframe reset. And the problem is, while you're watching the video, you can see, particularly in the shadow detail, particularly if you do contrast stretching, you get a flickering effect. So once again, like no other camera maker, DJI is utterly clueless. Alright, again, I have some more videos, some more testing to do, and hopefully I have something ready in a few days, but maybe this will whet your appetite. Thanks for watching.